Well, as the saying goes, any journey, whether it's 2,000 miles or 20 miles or 2 miles, it's got to begin with the first step. And so I'm going to kind of show you some snapshots of the way Barb Regan's machine looked when it first arrived at the workshop. And this isn't all aspects of the machine, it's just giving you some of the highlights, particularly with regard to the paint patina. The paint patina was a major concern for the customer, and spent quite a bit of time in the paint shop, about 60 miles away from the workshop, to try to mitigate those issues. And let's take a look at some of them. So the first impression you get when you look at the machine is it's real dull and nothing spectacular. But let's take a closer look at the paint, and then you'll see really where the challenges lie. Picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Major crackling issues. The clear coat and the paint as well had been compromised. And so our major focus when I get down to the paint shop is how can I mitigate this and yet not have to look at a total strip down, total repainting, and decal replacement as well. So a lot of time, a lot of patience. Let's see some more angles of the machine and what some of the challenges were. General cleanliness, also some rust as well, as we look at some of the other photos. More of that pervasive crackling on the paint. It just was throughout the entire bed and through many other parts of the machine as well. There's also a cloudiness in the paint as well, and that can sometimes happen when someone with good intentions is going to try to see if they can clear up the paint, and the result is it causes even more damage to the patina and causes even more crackling with the paint surface itself. Kind of getting the picture. And even though the decals were in generally good condition, the crackling of the clear coat and the finish just totally destroys the impression of the machine, doesn't it? There's our serial plate, which you can barely even read it, right? It's all caramelized, and varnishing and veneer buildup on there were really tough to read those numbers. But if you could read those numbers, what it would tell you is that this machine was born in 1911, which makes it right around 113 years old. Seeing if I wrote down the actual birth date. I don't know that I wrote down the actual birth date, but if you want to look it up and type it in the chat, that would be really cool. The serial number is G as in George, 029 1716. That would be awesome if you want to look it up. For some reason I thought I wrote it down, but I guess I did not. That's okay. Part of the classroom is us working together and discovering new things, so you can help me do that. And what you're noticing there is as I get ready to take a machine to the paint shop and try to mitigate patina issues, whether it's a complete restore and I've taken it all the way down to bare metal like you saw me do recently on that model 27 for Ross that's going to be heading back to Texas soon, or in this case where we're approaching it from a preservation standpoint, and with my skills I think that I'm going to be able to condition that surface to resolve the crackling issues and then rebuild it with fresh commercial grade clear coat to give it a nice final finish look. It still is a tedious process of having to remove all of the hardware from the machine. It all needs to come off because there are certain components of the machine that you do not want to hit with clear coat, like the upper tension unit and the balance wheel and other things like that. So all of that stuff needs to come off. And part of what we're going to do today when we shift to the other workbench is we're going to systematically look at returning all of those parts to the machine, getting the machine fully reassembled again, and getting it ready at that point where we can then go to the next step of premiering the machine. Now in this instance, Barb's machine is going to be a treadle machine. So I don't have it set up in a treadle table, obviously, so we're going to have to go through the process of me hand turning that balance wheel once we get to that phase, so we can see the stitch output, the stitch quality of this 1911 Class 66 red eye. So all the hardware has to come off. Also showing you some of the scratching near the top of the arm as well. And that can sometimes be because at one point a lot of our seamstresses back in the day, they would wrap it with a piece of cloth and then they would use that as their pin cushion. And it was a practical, straightforward approach, easy access to those pins, but it also inevitably would damage the clear coat and also the patina of the machine. And that's kind of what happened here. Also, you can see a lot of the chromed areas. A lot of the chromed areas, like our stitch length controller here, have just totally been degraded and crudded up. Combination of just filth, old oil as it goes from the user's hands to that control as they're manipulating it, and then everything else sticks to it after that point. It just kind of fuses to it. So that was another focus point, is trying to clear up that as well, because that's a major focal point to the customer and to anyone else looking at the machine as well. Just general filth and buildup again. A lot of deferred maintenance on this machine. So there's our balance wheel. And the original balance wheel on the machine would have been fine for general use, especially if you added an electric motor to it, but it would not work as far as setting it up for treadle use. I'll just show you real quick the contrast. Kind of put it on the computer here. So here you can see was the original balance wheel that was on the machine. It's a solid non-spoked wheel, and this is what Barb really needed for the machine. So I was able to source this part for her, an original part, and then also when I got done cleaning up the paint patina on the machine, I very carefully masked this off and then also clear coated this as well to give it a nice finished glossy look, as you can see. But that's a big factor. If you're looking to use a machine for treadle use, you always want to try to go with an oversized spoked wheel. It's going to allow you to manipulate that balance wheel much easier, especially for those vintage machines that are not set up with a back tack. So you can easily turn that balance wheel to lock off that stitch. So again, a huge amount of cleanup on this machine when it came to everything. And there you're seeing the back of the pillar. I'm going to step in front of the camera just for a moment. There you're seeing the back of the pillar. And again, you can just see in general, even where there wasn't crackling, there was just a layer of filth and film and crud that was taking away from the beauty of this machine significantly. So that had to be mitigated as well. See that? Just a huge amount of buildup and filth on the machine. And as filth sets on the paint patina, and paint, even when it's clear coated and has a good clear coat on it, which this machine didn't have because it was all crackled and degraded, even with a solid clear coat, eventually stuff, because clear coat at a microscopic level has some porousness to it. That crud and all that buildup and junk on there will work its way into those open pores on the clear coat and will just steal the beauty of the machine away. So here it was even a worst case scenario where the clear coat was in such bad condition that it wasn't able to in any way protect that paint and those paint levels below the surface that otherwise would be sealed off. So just a mess, just an absolute mess. There you can see more of that crackling near the pillar area as well. Yeah, I mean, it's for a lot of folks, when they get their machine at this level of disrepair and degradation, it almost seems hopeless. Because you're looking at that stuff and you're just going, how can you resolve something like that, especially when it's in such close proximity to the decaling. And decals, again, are very fragile. That's why we, you know, when I do a full restore on a machine, I keep sliding into the we, and it's only me, so I better get that right. As I move into a complete restore, kind of like I'm going to be doing on Ross's, where I'm going to take it all the way down to bare metal, as you've seen on Facebook, and then I'm going to build those paint layers back up, and then I'm going to prepare that surface to receive the decals, and then ultimately condition that surface to be able to receive those multiple layers of clear coat that are going to create an armor surface over those to protect them. The proximity of everything is overlaid. You've got clear coat overlaying the decals, you've got decals overlaying the paint and intermingled with the clear coat. So it becomes a surgical microscopic process to try to mitigate when it gets to this spider webbing of crackling on the clear coat without compromising the decals. Are you getting the picture? It's a very labor intensive process and very time consuming. But if the customer needs it, I'm going to do my very best to deliver. Kind of getting the picture, right? Everywhere. And there we've got a combination of rough up with the finish. And if I've gone full circle, which I may have done at this point, there you can see near the throat plate and feed dog area, just a lot of buildup and crud, a little bit of rust as well to mitigate also. They were looking into the feed dog area, the raceway, the brain center, and that brain right now has the equivalent of dementia or Alzheimer's because it's so filthy and crudded up that it cannot do its job. So a lot of deferred maintenance issues as well. They're looking at the hook system, all crudded up, just a mess. The machine can't function. More buildup and crud that has to be mitigated and resolved. Now we're looking at the rear of the machine. We're looking at the pitman arm. We're looking at some of the other mechanical components. Varnishing, crud, filth, old oil buildup on there and everything else that's just choking the life out of the machine. There you're kind of looking down the machine a little bit past the pillar towards the raceway, and it gives you an idea of the totality of the work that has to be done. I mean, it is from bobbing the balance wheel that Barb's machine needs. And this is why sometimes when another customer will contact me and say, Scott, where is my machine in the lineup? What's the projected time that's going to be hitting the workbench? When I get into a project like this that I did for Barb, it's really difficult to know how many hours I'm going to rack up resolving the issues that need to be resolved, whether it's general maintenance and cleanliness, whether it's paint and rust mitigation, whatever it is. I mean, I've got a lot of experience, over 20 years, over 2 decades of experience, but still, when you get into a project, you don't know all the challenges that you're going to encounter and how much clock time that's going to basically rack up on that project. So again, if you're one of those customers that's patiently waiting, first and foremost, thank you for your patience and for your understanding, because it's by watching premieres like this that kind of highlight the reaching the finish line and getting to that point where we're only a couple steps away from the premiere. It gives you more of an appreciation and an understanding of how a project is really hard to calculate the hours on in advance, so that I can in turn say to you, okay, you're number 3 in the lineup. It's going to be 2 weeks. It's going to be 3 weeks. It's going to be a month. Whatever it is, it's going to be 2 months. It's going to be 6 months, because some of these projects are just a lot more needy. And your machine might be one of those projects, and then other folks will be waiting in line wondering how long it'll be to get through your project. So a little bit of empathy goes a long ways in my circle of business. Here we're kind of looking the other way down the machine, past the pillar. Here we can see the serial plate, which is still in real bad shape. And you can see the paint patina up over here as well, where it's just created a total cloud over the machine, a total cloud. And this is where my friend Alex Askroff, who I had the privilege of interviewing and getting to know, and we're friends, and we exchange messenger messages all the time. I'll shoot things over to him that might be of interest, and he does the same thing with me. He and I are from different worlds when it comes to VSM. A lot of the machines he gets, as a matter of fact, I've seen this on his posts more than once, where he'll present a beautiful machine and someone will ask him, how did you get it to that luster? How did you get it to that finish? And I appreciate his honesty so much. He'll say, it came that way. Sometimes the machines just come looking like that. I didn't do anything to it. And a lot of the machines that Alex deals with over in the UK, they're showpieces, and they've been handled at a very, very minimal level. The machines I get are on the opposite spectrum, where they are at the worst possible condition, and I've got to bring them to a point of the ones that Alex will show on his channel or present on Facebook. And that's not to take anything away from Alex. That's his world. He works a lot with the treasures and the ones that have really been preserved and may have been restored by someone else. But that's not really Alex's space that he does a lot of his work. It's in presenting them and doing the maintenance on them to preserve that beauty. So there you go. Different worlds, but we're both contributing significantly to the VSM space, and that's the best of all worlds. There's our clutch stop action. And even that is just crudted up. You can look on the bottom there. It's got a little bit of rust and veneering and everything else kind of digging into it like a cancer. And also the balance wheel itself. You can look on the side. And this is obviously the original balance wheel that came on the machine that I showed you. It's a solid balance wheel it's not appropriate for this machine if it's going to be used as a treadle. Even that just is all crudted up and filthy and nasty, and it's not presentable. So here we're kind of looking off of the balance wheel. I've already taken off some of the hardware. And again, we're just looking at the general cleanliness of the machine. And there was a fair amount of rust on the inside of the machine as well that had to be mitigated. But again, as you look at the paint patina, it just gives you an understanding of how this machine arrived. Again, a machine that arrives a little bit dusty, as some of my fellow restorers will sometimes get them. I know Alex has as well, and he'll say something to the effect of, you know, I've told folks it's a pandemic environment, and to make sure that they tidy up their machines before they come to the workshop. And the one machine I remember him showing was, you know, it was a little bit dusty, but it wasn't anything like the machines that come across my workbenches. So again, each VSM expert, and I certainly consider Alex to be a fellow VSM expert and a contributor in an awesome way to our space, they've got different specialties. Mine is taking the worst case scenarios and making them great again, and others will be somewhere in the middle of that spectrum or on the other end of the spectrum. And that's all well and good. Again, we've got our own specialties, and we contribute in our own way to making the VSM environment even more rich, which is great. So at this point, we may have come full circle. I've kind of lost track. I'll just click a couple more times. But again, just look at the general condition of the paint. It's in a rough, very, very rough condition. There we're looking at a close-up of the traditional trademark of the red-eye decal pattern, and you kind of get the understanding, if you're new to VSM, why they call it a red eye. There it is. It's looking right at you, almost like a dragon or a snake or something, or a lizard, I suppose. There's on the back of the machine near the presser foot lever, and again, just general filth and buildup. One of our friends kind of looking on there as I'm examining the machine. Now here I begin that process of bagging things up. I don't want to lose anything. And so as I take these different clusters of hardware off of the machine to get it ready to go to my paint shop, I bag everything up so I can keep it in nice, tidy order. Now, your first impression as you look at that faceplate is it's beautiful, and it is. But look at it closer, especially near the bottom. And you can see that even though I've done some provisional cleanup of it, it still has a crusty, veneered, nasty look, a dulling look near the bottom of that shot of that faceplate. And the faceplate, again, is the jewelry, or the eye candy, as some of you refer to it. So it's got to be in a condition that is standing tall and looking good. And I just remembered, I forgot to ring the bell. So if you arrive after this point, you can go to one of our veterans or one of the two moderators, either Paula or Emma, and ask them for a late pass so that you don't get docked. And you don't have to go to summer school. Summer school, don't do that. Summer should be for relaxing and fun and maybe some work. It should not be for going to Singer Summer School. And there again, look at that real closely. You can see the dullness, especially in the more inlaid parts. There's just a lot of filth and a lot of embedded dirt and grime on that faceplate that needs to be dealt with. Same thing with the plate that goes on the rear of the machine. If you look at it closely, especially through here, you can see a lot of the buildup in there. And that all has to be mitigated so that the entire presentation of that jewelry or that eye candy is just stunning. You don't want to have a distractor and say, overall it looks great, but look at that area right there. You want to try to get all of that resolved. And again, be real careful what you use on chromed surfaces, because you can damage that chrome. That layer of chrome on the metal finish is incredibly thin, and it's very easy to compromise it. There's part of our upper tension that I had to tear down, and you can see again if you look at that with all of this junk, why a lot of those Facebook groups of so-called experts will talk about all you have to do is run a piece of cloth or something between the discs, and that's going to be sufficient to do maintenance on your upper tension. That's a bunch of malarkey, and you can see the proof in the pudding and the evidence right there. And most upper tensions, not just one from 1911, are going to get oil and other residue and filth and dirt and everything else that sticks to those parts, and can create a lot of hindrance in that upper tension being able to do its job properly. I would love to have live streamed this, but I'm still not at that point yet. I've tried it a couple of times and it's been rough. So that's why I decided to go with a live premiere instead of a live stream. I'll eventually get it. I'll eventually get it. There's the bottom of the machine below the raceway. There is so much servicing and restorative steps that have to be done to the bottom of the machine alone. We're talking hours and hours of work. So I'm just showing you some of the beginning states where it's just got a huge amount of filth and buildup on it. There we're looking down into the bottom of the raceway where the hook system is. So much stuff gets jammed in there. So much stuff gets built up on there. And you've got to go at it from a surgical level and get all that cleaned out. And again, I don't recommend taking it to a car wash as some of my fellow restorers apparently do, or they give it a bath. Not a good thing for a machine, because especially on a component like this where you've got all kinds of pivoting areas, that water will get in there. It will not wick out completely, and it will start to foster the buildup of rust. And you don't want that to do. I mean, you don't want that to make a bad situation even worse. And here's some, and that's a totally different machine. With some of these photo clusters, I was jumping between workbenches, and now we're actually looking at a Husqvarna, so you can disregard this. But that's helpful because I know I haven't seen that yet. Yeah. I'm just seeing if there's any other pictures of, I don't think there are any other pictures of our 1911 Class 66. This is work that I did on my friend Wayne that drove the 9 or 10 hours straight from Tennessee to bring up his Grandma Ida's Husqvarna 2000. And this is some of the work I did on that machine. It's kind of good you're having a chance to see him, because I didn't have a chance to do this when Wayne was here, because the turnaround was so quick and they were needing to get on the road to get through Chicago, heading back to Tennessee. Yeah, and here we come full circle. This is kind of where we started. But I want you to simply understand, I talk about workshop magic a lot, right? I talk about the magic of the workshop, but it's also a lot of hard work. And that's why when you see a machine, as you did, naked in a sense, with all of the shortcomings of it that we just looked at in those pictures, it gives you an appreciation when I go to the other workbench and we all of a sudden can see the machine now in a finished state, and you're like, oh my gosh, you remember what was happening there with the machine? Remember all the crackling over there? Remember that scratching across the top? And then all of a sudden the workshop magic is manifest. And you can say, wow, I want to send my machine to the workshop so he can do his magic on it, like what he just did for Barb, because Barb's machine was a mess, and look at it now. And now we're going to put it back together. That's even more fun, right? Yeah, it's more fun for you because you can just sit there and sip your coffee or Diet Coke or your tea, and I do all the work. What's that about? It's kind of like the workshop with all my friends. They just watch me work, and they're like, you're doing a great job, Scott. Keep up the good work. Keep up the good work. So let me turn this light back on. We'll go over to the other workbench and look at Barb's machine as it is now. It's look different. And we'll come off the tripod eventually and take a closer look at that Beautiful 1911 red-eye. Again, the machine you're looking at right now on screen is the same machine we just saw in the sorry state that it was. That is 113 years old. 113 years old. And it looks like it literally just came out of the Singer factory, brand spanking new, and it's going to go to one of those Singer sales and service centers, and someone's going to scoop it up and take it into their home, and then put some sort of wrap around the arm and scratch it up with the needles and do all kinds of other horrible things to it, so that eventually, 113 years later, it can land in Oconto, Wisconsin and be reborn. Yeah, that's kind of what I do. Yeah. So, how about some more music as we start to put this puppy back together? And I just chose a wide variety of genres today. I picked rock, I picked reggae, I picked pop. So you're going to hear just a huge flavor of music. Matter of fact, you know what? So I can get to work on this, because this customer will be coming soon to pick it up. Let's just take a look at the machine first. Now realize we're looking at a spectacular machine, right? Especially when you reflect back on the photos that I just showed you on Facebook, right? But this is original paint. These are original decals. So there are, in certain areas, slight imperfections. And that's to be expected, right? Because it's original paint, and all I did was mitigate all of that crackling and bring back the beauty of this machine. That's what the customer wanted, so that's what I did. Remember up here on the top of the arm, all the scratching? Oh, we can actually read the serial number now. Who knew? Isn't this the fun part? I mean, seriously. You see a machine that is in such a bad state, and others would have just said, throw it on the curb. Put it in the dustbin, as my UK friends will say so beautifully. But instead, Barb Regan had the foresight to say, I've heard about the magic of the workshop. I know the talent that Scott has. I know his tenacity for not giving up no matter how difficult the project is. And I'm going to put him to the test. Well, I was put to the test, and I hope you would agree, and you can type it in the chat. If you feel like I passed the test, if you feel like I deserve a passing mark on this project, then type that in the chat. Would you be so kind to do that? And in the meantime, we'll just kind of peek a little bit at this machine again. Again, it's not quite the same as Brad Stuman's that I did a full restore on. Brad Stuman from Tennessee. But when you reflect back to the condition of the paint patina, the crackling, the dulling, the fogging, everything else going on with it, we sure came a ways, didn't we? Again, I would consider this almost like a page 34 equivalent of museum quality. It's come a long ways, but it's not. I would not put it in the class of museum quality just because of the imperfections in some of the decal work, some of the fading, and you know, it's not museum quality, but it sure is close, isn't it? Especially when you give credit to it as far as where it started, right? So there you go. So if you have a machine that looked as rough as Barb's and you say, Jiminy Crickets, I would love to be able to see Mr. Bean's face. Your hair's not out of place, Mr. Bean. It isn't. You look great. You look great, sir. You know, contact me and let me see if I can help you out. Again, the process to turn around is not quick, so if you're in a hurry, you'll have to go somewhere else because it is a long process, and a lot of folks are ahead of you right now. That's why when someone contacts me and then they go away, you know, they contact me about a project and they say, I'm definitely going to go with you. I know the quality of your work. And then they disappear for 6 months and they come back and they go, are you still busy? I am. I'm still busy. As a matter of fact, since you last contacted me, customer ABZ, I've had another 26 machines that have arrived and are now in the queue that you're behind. And if you had sent your machine straight away 6 months ago, you'd be ahead of those 26 machines. See what I'm saying? The longer you wait, the longer you gotta wait. So, I mean, it's totally up to you. I'm not a pushy guy, but I'm just letting you know. I'm letting you know that it's a waiting process. Okay? Okay. I'm gonna get a drink of water or something. You know, I don't have any lemonade down here. And then we're gonna start putting this machine back together. I wanted to involve you in at least a portion of that so that you can see there's work that happens before the paint shop. There's work that happens after the paint shop. Lots of it. First of all, though, I'm going to clean my Premier spectacles. These little puppies right here. Pretty color. I like this color a lot. You know, what color would you call this? I don't know if you're able to see it in the shot or not. What color is that? It's some sort of a green, isn't it? I don't think I'm colorblind. And I'm not talking about the bands or the arms or whatever they call them. Those are multicolored, obviously, but the general base color, I think, is just pretty. Such a pretty color. It feels a little bit like a Husqvarna, but not quite. Well, while I'm cleaning my glasses and just getting ready to begin reassembling Barb's 1911 Singer 66 Class 66 Red Eye, I just want to shout out, even though we're past it now, just want to do a shout out to the Heroes for Hank again, the champions that stepped forward for this local shelter and made a miracle happen. If you don't know anything I'm talking about, you've got to check out that playlist that takes you from the beginning all the way to the end. That resulted in us raising $6,400 to help the Oconto Area Humane Society. How cool is that? A lot of critters are going to get help because of that. Okay, clean glasses. I can actually see now a little bit. And now we're going to start putting this machine back together. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm not going to put on my DeWalt shirt. It's been a little bit warm this week. And I'm a hot-blooded guy, so, you know, when it comes to putting on my DeWalt jacket, I'll wait until we get a little bit of snow on the ground, or at least colder temperatures. So this is our part of our, what do you call it, eye candy, I guess. This is our faceplate that's going to be going on the machine now. See what I'm saying? The difference where it was as opposed to where it is now. And that's, I mean, that's what it should be. There's no compromising. There's no, you know, well, it's pretty good. It's a major focal point of the machine, so it's got to be
it's got to be as near perfect as possible. So we'll put that on first. Yeah, just checking a couple things. I'm also gonna, when I get a machine that's been sitting in the paint shop for a period of time, which is a pretty dry, dusty environment, I always blow it out with my air compressor when I get it back, but I also like to give it a little drink of oil on certain parts that I know that are going to be high friction, high viscosity. So why don't we do that straight away? And the faceplate is one of those areas, again, that a lot of people will kind of ignore it, but it really is important. I just have to watch that brick from the Singer factory down in South Bend, Indiana as I rotate the machine so I don't scratch the edge of the bed, you know what I mean? Okay, and we have another part to assemble as well before we get to the actual faceplate, don't we? Let me see if I can carefully rotate the machine around so you can see it from the front. I take apart the spring assembly for the pressure foot as well, so we've got to add that spring back into place. And again, a little bit of a trick when you're, or a trick tip, when you're putting on the slider plate that goes over the bobbin, and also the other plate that goes over the feed dogs, is you want to put this plate on first. I have to grab a cloth. It looks like I got a little bit of oil on there. Find my cloth. There it is. All right. So there's basically a leaf spring right here that has to slide over that groove on both sides. You can see there's a groove on either side, a track, and that leaf spring has to be able to catch in there to hold this plate in place. If you've ever gotten a plate that's real wobbly and it kind of wiggles, it's because it wasn't mounted and installed properly. And what I do sometimes is I'll use a little tiny screwdriver, similar to this. So as I slide that plate on, I can pop that spring up a little bit and make sure that it gets seated in there correctly. And it's still a little bit tricky nonetheless, so. And in most cases, you can do it either way, but in most cases, especially if you're taking it off, you'll want to install it in reverse, because it makes seeing those that leaf spring a little bit easier. So we'll just do that, make it easier instead of more difficult. You kind of position it like this, and then carefully start to walk it towards the end. And you won't be able to see it close up, but I can zoom in on it so you can see it. So you can see there's a little spring right on this side. It's all part of the same band, but there's a little part of the band here that you can push up a little bit. You kind of get underneath the edge of it with the screwdriver. See how I kind of pushed it up? And I kind of slide the plate so that it's making contact with that track. And then I can do the same thing with the other side as well. And that way it's nice and firm. See that? There's no wiggle, there's no jiggle to it at all. And the same thing when you're taking a plate like this off, you want to also, instead of trying to force it this direction, you want to come back the same direction to get it off. The same direction we had it on, so come back this way. See that? Get it right to here, pop one edge up so it gets into that track, and then go by the other side. I think I got it. Nope, I missed it. So I've got it hooked on this side, but this side is not in the track. So I'm going to push it back a little bit, get that popped up again. There we go. Nice and firm, no wiggle, no jiggle to it. Now the other thing I have to do is, remember me talking before about the throat plate cover and how if you get crud built up on that edge, it will actually cause that throat plate cover to raise up. See how we have a little bit of debris in there? It could be some tape from the paint shop that I didn't quite get off. But whatever it is, we got to get it off before we install this plate on top of it, right? It takes a little bit more time, but it's the proper thing to do. And you have to, I'm going to use one of my dental tools, but you have to be very careful that it doesn't skip off and scratch that beautiful paint that we just got done restoring. So I'm going to turn the machine to the side a little bit. Change my camera shot again. Come a little bit wider. There we go. And I'm also going to take off my West Point ring, which has a great likelihood of somehow catching the paint, and I don't want to do that. So Reggie White's going to hang on to it for me. Yeah, I'm actually going to use my magnifier so I have even better visibility. see all that stuff that I just broke free? I think you can. And see, someone else that would be doing this, they would have just slapped that plate back over the top of it, but yeah, it may end up coming into focus. I can't tell. But anyway, a lot of junk. I'll just put it on the end of the plate here for right now. Just kind of look at it. Rotate the machine. I'll change my camera shot if I have to.
So look at all that junk. You see that? That's all the stuff that would have prevented that feed dog cover from seating down properly. Some of that is clear coat overspray. Even though it was all masked off, it still can kind of creep in there. I mean, it's a very fine mist. So
let me zoom in on that so you can take a look at that.
you may be able to see it already in the shot. Yeah, you sort of can. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Because you would have looked at that as I showed you a close-up of it, and generally it looked like it was pretty well kept. But look at all that stuff that I was carefully able to remove using the dental tool, so that throat plate cover and feed dog cover is going to seat down more properly. All right, so quickly I'm going to remove the machine from the workbench and blow it off because I don't want that stuff to get all over the workbench. Just bear with me for a second here. And before I install it, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm just going to do a little bit of tidying up on this. And if you're not familiar with this, this is a brass wire wheel. It's actually made from brass. And brass, as most of you know, is going to be incredibly soft when it comes to the likelihood of it scratching a metal surface like this. So it really is the ideal way to tidy up a plate like this a little bit before it's installed. It's not in bad condition, but I'm just going to see if I can spruce it just a wee bit before it goes back on. So just make sure I don't hit my thumb. I've done that a couple times, and all of a sudden the reality that brass can also be sharp comes to effect. So again, this is original. It's not going to be absolutely perfect, but it's going to be tidied up. And also you want to do the edges of it as well. Do the edges because there can be buildup on there, and that's also going to hinder it from seating down properly. There we go. Now we're going to install the two screws, and I've already done some tidying up on these. So we're just going to put them into place. And again, whenever you're working around a painted surface, you just have to be extra patient, extra cautious that you don't allow whatever you're using to screw it back in to skip away and to hit that painted surface. And it's so easy for that to happen if you're in a little bit of a rush. So just take your time, whether you're doing it in the privacy of your own home or whether you're doing it on camera like I am. So, and this plate should be screwed down very, very snugly so that you're getting the full benefit of those feed dogs clearing the plate opening. Rear one is sometimes actually easier to do with a long screwdriver.
kind of keep my, you probably can't see it, but I kind of keep my finger on the rear of this, the bolt as a guard to try to keep that screwdriver from shifting off to the rear. And just because of the process, and especially if I have to replace one of the plates, they may not match exactly perfectly, but they're going to do their job of covering up that the raceway and the feed dogs. So what we're going to install next is going to be the upper tension. So let me change my camera shot to there. And obviously this upper tension, as you saw in the Facebook shots, was totally disassembled and thoroughly cleaned. So it looks strikingly different from the way it did in some of the Facebook shots you may have seen. So I always add just a tiny little drop of oil where the release pin is going to go, so that that pin is able to move freely. You can put your pin in then. And then we're going to seat it into place in the socket that it gets installed in. And as far as the position, since this is not a self-centering one where you can see right away where that center point should be on it, on this one, because of the design of this unnumbered upper tension, you want to get that take-up spring right about at the 11 o'clock position. And obviously when you're installing it into the socket, make sure that your presser foot lever is all the way down. I actually had it in the up position. That's incorrect, because then it's going to be pushing it out further than it should be to get it seated properly. So make sure that's in the down position and then get it seated properly in there. And on this design, because that spring, that take-up spring, moves behind the pressure upper tension discs, you have to leave just about a millimeter of space so it can move up and down freely. Otherwise it's going to be pressed against the body of the machine and it's not going to function properly. And then what I'm going to do is, there's a set screw on the right side here. I'm going to go ahead and screw that back into position to lock this into place. And then I'm going to very gently, using my dental tool, I'm going to very gently grab that spring, kind of hook around the front of it, and just move it up and down to make sure that it's able to move freely. Then I'm going to raise my presser foot lever and make sure that I see that those discs are being released. Which they are. See that? And I lock it back in place, and it should be cinched back down again, maintaining tension and pressure. So it's functioning perfectly. Released, locked. Okay. What should we install next? Maybe we can just put our cover on the rear of the machine, huh? So let me change my camera shot. We'll flip the machine around carefully, and we'll install our eye candy plate on the rear of the machine. Right about there, I think, should be good for this next install. And again, just thinking about the person that might follow after me and might service this machine 20 years from now or 30 years from now, I try to think of everything. So again, being in a dusty, dry paint shop, I'll lubricate some of those critical points again on the machine. Some of them are going to be internal, some of them are going to be from the top.